The world is falling short of biodiversity targets. 4 years ago, close to 200 nations, including Canada, set 20 biodiversity-related goals to meet in 2020. Now, a published study being led at Dalhousie University in Halifax shows the international community is not on track to achieving those targets. And here to tell us about what this means is Dr. Derek Tittensor, the study's lead author. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. Good to be here.
First of all, what are those biodiversity targets that we're trying to reach?
So these were a set of 20 goals set up in 2011 and to be met by 2020. So to be achieved this decade. And they cover a range of items, so things like sustainable management of forests and fishery resources, protecting species, habitats and ecosystems, and so forth, just generally looking after the fabric of the natural world.
So what did your report find?
So we gathered an international group of scientists, about 50 scientists from all over the world, to get as much information on the trends in biodiversity and ecosystems and tried to see where we'd be in 2020. And unfortunately, what we found was that the majority of these targets are unlikely to be met by that time.
Were you surprised by that?
It's, you know, quite often we hear a lot of bad news about the natural world, so it's not a huge surprise, but one of the reasons for doing this was we're now at the midpoint, or 2015 will be the midpoint, so we still have time to change the course that we're on and to swing things around and maybe improve our progress.
And why do you think we're behind?
It's a good question. Partly it's a resource commitment issue, so I don't think we're committing enough resources to protecting the environment. Partly I think some of the targets are quite ambitious, which is a good thing. But I think all in all, it's just a really challenging thing to do. Protecting biodiversity, there are a lot of human impacts on biodiversity. There's a lot of pressures on biodiversity and on ecosystems. So it's not something that's quick to turn around and bring back on a positive trajectory.
Speaking of positive, is there some progress being made in the global community?
Yes, there is. So one example of somewhere where good progress is being made is in protected areas. So there's a target of having 17% of the Earth's surface protected by 2020. And our projections suggest that will be met. So in some places in understanding and public awareness of biodiversity, I think we're doing well. People are getting more and more engaged with the issue and they understand the issue better. We're getting more scientific knowledge. And we are committing more resources to managing our fisheries and forests more sustainably.
Right. Now, we are talking on a global scale. How is Canada in particular doing? So
Canada has a set of 20 national targets that it aims to meet at 2020 as well. So that's part of its commitment towards meeting these broader international goals. So I think Canada has some good things and some bad things. So there's the proposed federal marine protected area network, which is you know, being expanded and being put into place. I think that's great. There are some fishery resources. I'm thinking specifically of the haddock off Georges Bank that are well managed. There's good cooperation between America and the US in terms of their fisheries departments. They're sustainably certified. So I think there are some examples of where Canada's doing well. Places where we're perhaps not doing as well are in things like deforestation rates and so forth, which is still quite high.
Right. What are the consequences if we don't meet these targets? Why is it important that we do?
Oh, it's a good question. So ultimately it comes down to what is the importance of biodiversity? What is the importance of ecosystems? And I think ecosystems really underpin human health. They provide food, they provide natural resources, and biodiversity lies underneath ecosystems. So ultimately, if we continue to let ecosystems degrade, and they are degrading quite fast, then our quality of life will be affected into the future. And if not ours, then our children and our grandchildren will have a worse quality of life.
Right. Now, it's you and a fairly large team who created this report. What do you hope it will do? What do you hope to accomplish with it?
So right now, the 193 countries that signed the convention are meeting in Korea. So they're discussing these results. And they're looking at where we've got to. And so what I hope is that this report will act as a bit of a wake-up call and say, hey, you know, we're doing well in a few places, but there's lots of aspects that we need to focus on. We need to do better at protecting species, preventing extinctions, protecting habitats. And I hope that it will help people to turn things around a little bit.
Very interesting report, and we hope it does. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Dr. Derek Tittenzor.